Hi there, Julie Hart from Heart to Heart Canine here. Many of you already know I work with a lot of fearful and feral dogs. And one of the most common issues with fearful or feral dogs is that they don't want to walk on a leash. Or if they do walk on a leash, perhaps they don't want to do certain things while on the leash, like going upstairs, getting in a car, going through a doorway, coming inside, and that sort of thing. These methods also apply to normal dogs who have just learned to not move on walks for various reasons. Maybe they're stubborn, or maybe the owner has actually encouraged that behavior in some manner. What you'll see in this video is detailed glimpses of how I use tension and release to get these dogs to move forward in the video. And I use various dogs in various settings. I want to go over some common misconceptions and myths that are out there, that if you put any tension on a fearful or feral dog, that they will shut down and be more afraid of you. And this is not true. What I find happens is that people actually are afraid to put any tension or stress on a fearful or feral dog in a humane and positive manner, of course, where they can succeed. And then that dog ends up living a very poor quality of life. It's isolated and sheltered inside, and even has to go potty in the house. I want my fearful and feral dogs to be able to live like normal dogs. I want them to be able to go on walks, explore, go on car rides with me, run errands with me, go to parks with me. The way I rehab them depends on these dogs being able to walk on a leash, because that way I can encourage braver behavior. It's really important to have these dogs be able to go to a vet office, for example, in case they get sick. So having dogs walk on a leash is one of the first things I cover. If you all want to know more about how I work with fearful and feral dogs, I have an extensive online learning library about this topic. And I have one called The Walk of Life, which goes over this entire sequence in much more detail than this compilation. I hope this helps you and your fearful or feral dogs, or any dog that's refusing to move and won't budge on a leash. Come on, girlfriend. Onyx is our first example of a dog that's refusing to budge. She is very scared of getting a bath, and I'm trying to get her used to going in and out of the shower, but she's putting on the brakes and refusing to move. Onyx is about 80 pounds, so she's a large dog. However, she knows me well and has enough trust in me for her to succeed in doing this. She has also developed a habit of laying down when she doesn't want to do something. This behavior has been rewarded by people not making her do things. This behavior has been learned by her because it's worked for her. When she refuses to do things, she will lay down, and then the people don't know how to get her to move. You'll see Onyx a couple times in this video, and she's not exactly scared to move, but she is very scared of getting a bath. At some other moments in the video, she's just refusing to budge. So tension, and as soon as she moves forward, I want to release the tension. Good girl. Good. I'm going to go through this video in slow motion. So here I'm putting tension, slight tension, not too much, on the leash. And as soon as Onyx moves her leg towards me, you can see the tension releases on the leash right here. The release of tension is the most important part of this entire process. This is called negative reinforcement, and it allows the dog to realize how they can turn off the negative feeling of the leash. I'm not using the leash to the point of hurting the dog or choking the dog, just slight tension, enough so the dog can feel it. And after I release the tension, I'm going to put on tension to get her to take one more step towards the shower, right here. You can see she slinks back, puts her weight back a little bit. But I'm not going to give in to that. I'm just holding the tension as it is. And Onyx has a choice to move forward or not. This is also classical to conditioning in the way that the dog is learning how they can control their own environment and be successful. Another very important point to make is I am not just dragging the dog around. There is a clear release of tension to tell the dog when they did a good thing. Most dogs that are fearful or feral will not take food to help in this process. And Onyx is not very food motivated. If your dog will take food, feel free to use it, but also know the clear communication of the leash is very important. You have to have quite a bit of patience when you do this. And if you get frustrated or give in, the dog is not going to succeed. Right here, she starts to step forward, and her moving forward immediately releases the tension on the leash. So again, that tells her she did good and that she is learning how to release that tension. And then she wags her tail. Notice Onyx's tail is not tucked and it's even wagging a little bit as she moves towards me. So this is not causing her to fear me whatsoever. So just starting off where we ended yesterday, a little review. Onyx enjoys praise and a little pat, so that is her reward. If the dog you're working with does not enjoy being touched or talked to or petted, do not give this as a reward because it will actually be a negative towards the dog. The release of the tension on the leash is enough for the dog to understand the communication. You don't have to add in anything else. Tension and release is used properly, the dog will become more confident and more trusting in the handler. You can see here she investigates the shower more than she wanted to before.
Right, I'm here at Home Depot. Onyx does not want to get out of the car. She weighs 80 pounds, so it's not so easy to get her out if she doesn't want to. And one of the most common questions I have is, what do you do if a dog doesn't want to go through a doorway or come out of the car or something like that? So if I allow her to stay in the car, she's not going to have fun. And she's also going to learn that remaining scared and resisting worked for her, and then next time it's going to be harder to get her out of the car. Most dogs at this point won't take food to get out of the car either. So again, this behavior is the same like going in and out of doorways or into cars or anything like that. So the first thing I try to do is I first sit here with her and we check out everything that's going on. And I give her a chance to sniff. 2, I also ask myself, does Onyx have a good enough relationship with me for me to ask her to do this? And in her case, the answer is yes. She's been many, many, many places with me over the years. And then what I'm going to do after I've done those things, she's had enough time to assess, right? We're watching what's going on. There's a car going by. You see her look at that, right? So I'm looking at it too. Right? So I am being aware and in tune with what is concerning and important to her. Here comes a guy with a cart. Just looking at him. And I'm also not going to ask her to get out of the car right when something weird is happening in front of the car, right? Like someone with a cart going by. I want to wait till it's somewhat quiet where my car is and then get her out of the car. All right, so what I'm going to do is face the direction I want her to go. And then I'm just going to put a little tension on.
I know it starts to be hard to see what I'm doing, but I'm putting tension on the leash until Onyx moves her feet towards the opening of the crate. And then I release the tension and she decides to come out.
Come on.
It is super important to release the tension as soon as the dog moves forward. If you don't release the tension and continue to pull the dog out after it takes a step, the dog will not understand that you want it to move forward, and then you are actually punishing the dog for moving forward because you're keeping the tension on the leash.
She's a big dog, so you have to use your legs for
Here
this.
I try again. Put tension on the leash. You can see Onyx hunker down. But as soon as she takes a step, you can see me release the tension on the leash. And as soon as I release the tension on the leash, she's like, oh, I got it. I'm supposed to come out. And she comes out.
Maybe she's gotten away with that since I've worked with her last, because normally I don't have that issue with her. Getting out of my car. Good girl. Good girl. Okay, we are at another location. Onyx is running errands with me. She actually is familiar with this location, so she's going to come out a lot easier here. This is our last stop that she'll be able to go with me. So let's see how she does here. Another home improvement store, because I couldn't remember where I actually bought the things I need to return. So, doing the same thing again, right? Giving her a moment to sniff, check out her environment. You're sitting on the leash, girl. Okay, look at that.
Empirical knowledge and the dogs in this video prove dogs will not become more afraid by using tension release appropriately. They will become more resistant and afraid if allowed to remain that way. All right, another day in the bathroom, still working on her shower phobia. Here's good examples of slight tension release. You can see here, I just don't let her back up. And just by me standing still and almost holding my hand still, she's doing all the work and all the figuring out herself. Here she tries to lay down, and I just hold slight tension on the leash, and she quickly follows me in. Because this is what we did yesterday. It's raining, by the way, if you hear the noise in the video on my metal roof. And this is another example, same day, different angle. You can see here she really doesn't want to take the step into the shower. But her only choice is to move forward at this point. And I take a minute and just pat her and acknowledge her effort. But here I'm just holding the leash at the same distance, and she's having to figure it out herself.
Her only choice is to go into the shower. That's all I want her to do, is just walk in here.
And here she tries to back up and get out of it, but I don't let her. I just kind of tug a little bit towards me, and into the shower she goes. It's also important to note that with all of these things, I am doing them with the dog. So I am getting into the shower with her. I am setting the example.
Good girl. Yes, good girl. I'm giving her lots of chances to explore on her own. Go back and forth and all that stuff, right? Before I actually ask her to go in. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Look at that. Good girl. And she can come right back out. Right? Because my goal is not to entrap her in the shower the first time she goes in there. I remember she's always already watched me go in the shower and take a shower. So I did it first. She saw I tried. She had time to investigate the whole room.
I'm going to slow this down right here. Right here, Onyx resists a little bit. And then I just put very slight tension on the leash, and it causes her just to come forward. So you really have to pay attention to the dog you're not putting tension and release onto the leash according to you. You're applying tension and release on the leash according to what the dog is doing. So here I put a little more tension on the leash. I just hold it. And right here it releases because she comes forward. I see a lot of people just moving their arm in a pumping motion thinking they're doing tension release. That is wrong. You will not get results that way. You have to do it according to the dog's actions. The upcoming clip is after I turned on the water in the shower.
So now she's resisting, which she's gotten away with other people. And so this makes my job harder. Right? So people are like, okay, the dog's refusing, what do I do? So tension. Right? And if that doesn't work, you may have to apply a little more. Come on. Come on, Onyx. There we go. As soon as the dog stands up, release the tension. Yeah. Good girl.
So we're going to watch this segment again in slow motion just so I can explain. So I turned the water on, which is why Onyx is now more resistant, because she's like, nope, don't want to go in that shower with the water on. And here she's laid down, so that means 80 pounds of dead weight. And a lot of people are like, well, what should I do? Should I just pull the dog? Well, sort of. But you can't just pull the dog all the way into the shower. What I do is apply enough tension and give the leash a little tug to have her stand up. Because that's the first step in her walking, is standing. So right here, I put enough tension on the leash, and she's like, nope. You can see her just hunkering down there. And then I tug again. And then the third time I put just a little more tension on the leash. And again, this isn't enough to hurt the dog. But this time it's enough to make her stand up. And then I immediately release the tension. I know I'm repeating myself, but I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to release the tension when the dog makes the slightest movement towards what you want. So once you work through this with the dog a few times, the dog realizes, one, it's going to survive by following you, and it'll be okay. And two, that it has control over the situation, and as soon as the dog decides to cooperate, the tension goes away. And three, the dog's going to learn that resisting is not going to work and is actually going to make their life more uncomfortable. I'm showing this clip just to show you this is after the previous clip, and you can see the resistance Onyx shows, and the willingness to follow me is so much more improved just by working her through that. And then she walks into the shower with the water running.
You can see me pulling her that one time in here is not affecting her fear of anything. I don't know why people think that's going to make the dog more afraid. It's actually increasing their bravery and their trust in you.
This is another dog that I saw at the shelter, and she just grabbed my heart. And she wanted human companionship, but was also afraid and didn't know how to walk on the leash. So this is part fear and a little bit of stubbornness. But you can see here, I apply a little tension. The dog takes a tiny little step, and I remove the tension. Since she seems a little afraid, I also back up a little bit, give her a little massage, because for this dog, that's a positive, and sniff the bush next to her. And here she sniffs the bush too. So if the dog's having a little bit of problems and having some trouble, you can always take a minute and do something to help the dog relax a little bit, and then try again. Here, a little step, a little tension, a little step, release of tension.
A little tension, release of tension after she steps forward. This is really slow at first, but this quickly moves into the dog being able to walk like a normal dog. So the dog's quality of life changes exponentially. And here I'm just giving her a little more massage just to loosen her up a little bit. You may not be able to do this with most fearful and feral dogs. It may not be a welcome thing. Oh yeah, good girl. So she takes several steps there and she gets a good pat for that.
Good girl, yay, good job. It's a little puggy mini boxer.
Once Ninka understands the leash enough to take her out of the shelter for a walk, my dog shows her the way. And it's pretty obvious that using tension and release helped her walk on a leash and improve her quality of life in just a couple hours.
See how little she is there. Little for me.
This is Dee Dee Domingo. She was hit by a car and taken to a neurological veterinary specialist. She's been cleared for activity. You can see here that she does not know how to walk on a leash. Dee Dee probably lived on a reservation, but was not a pet and has never been on a leash. Basically, all I do is stop her from running back to the vet clinic. And you can see when she's alligator rolling, all I do is try to keep the leash loose and untangle it from her. But I wait for her to calm down a little bit before I ask her to come with me. And Dee Dee has a style of combat crawling with me along the wall. Often these dogs want to stick to the wall or the edge of a fence when they walk. When she has a momentary freak out, I just stand still and wait for her to calm down, and then we continue. Most people would give up and let Dee Dee run back to the vet clinic instead of asking her to walk on a leash. But it's super important for her to be able to walk on a leash so her quality of life can greatly improve in her foster home. That way she can be with the other dogs and in the household and also get used to going for walks and going potty outside. It's important just to give the dog time to figure out what they're being asked to do as well. Here, Dee Dee seems like she needs a break, so I just let her rest. Here I see if Dee Dee likes being touched, and I touch her nose to start and then give her ears a little scratch, and she does seem to enjoy it. I asked Dee Dee to move a little bit forward, and she does, but she quickly decides she really wants to go back towards the wall. And at this point, I'm just trying to get her to move on a leash, and so I let her go back to the wall and walk back towards the vet clinic. You can see here I'm just using tiny bits of tension on the leash when Dee Dee pauses.
and this keeps her moving along the wall. I don't want the dog to get in the habit of stalling for a long time. But here I give her a rest. I want to make sure to give the dogs lots of breaks if they need it. And here she gives a half-hearted attempt at an alligator roll, much less than her first time around. And again, I give her a rest because I feel she needs it. And then I ask her to move a little bit. She gets up, and then she decides, oops, I don't want to do that. She tries to get back to the vet clinic door, and then acquiesces and comes with me to the corner again. Here's Dee Dee a few weeks later, walking very pleasantly on leash and coming to me when I call her. Notice she's accepting pets and even likes them a little bit now. So again, the myth of how putting any tension or stress on the dog can cause them to become fearful actually isn't true, and I think does more harm than good for these dogs, because they need to learn how to walk on a leash to start the rehab process and to greatly improve their quality of life. Waiting for the dog to decide to walk on a leash will take months that could be used for rehab time and for the dog to learn to enjoy being a pet. This is Rosie, a previously feral dog that was going to be euthanized at another rescue because they could not get her to walk on a leash and improve. So one of our volunteers decided to try her out. She did pretty well, except Rosie would not get in the car, and the volunteer had to pick her up every time, which was not sustainable. So here I am getting Rosie to go over shorter platforms in preparation for jumping in the car. First, I had to get her cooperating with me and trusting me on smaller obstacles instead of just putting her in the car to begin with. In this series of videos, you'll notice how I use the leash and just keep tension on and shorten the leash enough so Rosie cannot go around the obstacles, but has to go over them. Another fun thing about Rosie is that she would not take food and she did not want to be touched. And she's been known to bite if you invaded her space too much.
See, I'm just holding her here, so it's her choice. Yay! Good girl, Rosie. Good girl. Let's go over here. No?
Right here, I block the way around the obstacle, and then I hold the leash short enough so that Rosie has to go over it.
Good girl. Good job.
I'm not going to force the dog necessarily. I'm not going to just pull them over. I'm just going to not give them an out, right? Like, she just can't not do it. And it's kind of her decision when she decides to do it, but she's going to do it. Go this way again, Rosie. This way? Yeah, good girl.
I block her from going around the obstacle by using the leash because I need her to go where I ask her to get in the car.
Good. Yay, Rosie!
Next, we go to a higher bench. In this example, again, I go first, I set the example, and then I use the leash and limit their options to get the dog to go where I want to go.
First, I want to let her check this thing out. Right?
You want to come through? Come on. Yeah, good girl. Good girl, Rosie. Good girl. I set the example.
If you can't do something like this, you
could always have another dog demonstrate for you what you want the dog to do. Come on up. Come on up, girl. Oh, you're gonna go under? Good girl. Good girl.
I'm slowing down this part so you guys can see what happens better. So Rosie tries to go under, which is fine. I don't mind her trying that. That's a good option. But this time I hold the leash short enough so she can't go all the way under the bench. It's really important to hold the leash at a proper length so it encourages the dog to do what you want. And here I just tug a little bit upwards on the leash and she jumps up. And then I step forward to give her more space to come over the bench, and she comes all the way over the bench. So just that little tug was enough encouragement for Rosie to get her to come over. Now we move to the car.
So again, I'm just not giving her
And
a
the
choice.
car is
Well,
always harder
she has a
because
choice.
it's a
The
dark
choice is to
enclosed
stay here.
area. I've already let Rosie go in and out of the back seat and sniff around the car. But in her foster mom's car, she needs to jump in the back, so that's what we're working on. You can see here Rosie starts to protest. She's not necessarily afraid. She just hasn't been held accountable to getting in the car, and her protesting has won.
Protest this quite a bit.
So now she's going to try protesting again, which isn't going to work with me. This kind of behavior would cause a lot of people to abandon this goal. If you abandon it when a dog protests, the dog got their way and learned that creating drama will get them out of doing things they don't want to do. Also notice that when Rosie does this protesting and alligator rolling and everything, I just wait for her to stop. There's no need to do anything else because she's putting all the tension on the leash herself, and I just kind of stand there and wait for her to calm down, and then we try again.
I can put a little treat in here. So
I decided to try using a few treats for a little extra enticement. This is dehydrated liver or dehydrated heart, so dogs really love this stuff. I put a little bit inside the car after she smells it so she knows what it is.
okay.
And even though she won't take from me, I'm hoping having it in the car might just be a little extra push that we need for her to jump in there. Plus, once she gets in, she'll be able to eat the treats if she wishes to. The paw over the leash is a very common tactic for feral dogs.
Yes, good girl. She didn't take it, but she licked it.
Even though Rosie doesn't totally get in the car here, I want to reward her efforts by releasing all the tension on the leash while she is almost in the car. If she chooses to back up, she's going to receive a little more tension on the leash to encourage her to come in. So while the truck pulling up may seem like a negative, I used it to my advantage because I knew the person getting out of the truck would scare Rosie, and she would prefer to be in the safe car.
Yes! Sometimes something like that provides you what you need for the dog to run into somewhere safer than being out here with strangers.
So Rosie now happily jumps in and out of the car, and she jumped in her foster mom's car when she came to pick her up. Putting a little tension on the leash and holding Rosie accountable to what I asked her to do created a good habit and not fear. I hope this has given you an idea of how to use tension and release to help fearful and feral dogs and any dogs that won't budge to walk happily on leash. I must add that this is not the entire process to rehabilitating a fearful and feral dog. And again, I have lots of online learning opportunities if you're struggling with this.